Hi, I'm Aubrey. I'm senior pastor of G2G Ministries in Tampa, Florida. The great Irish statesman, as well as member of parliament during the 1700s, Edmund Burke, he said something that has often just kind of resonated within my heart. Here's some of his words. He says, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." I was reflecting on that as I was thinking about the deficit that I'm seeing in America among some of our Judeo-Christian leaders. And I was reflecting on it as I'm watching this onslaught of various institutions that are constantly trying to erode the very principles that you and I find our foundation in. Consider a gentleman, and I won't share with you his name, but I'll just share his institution. He's a law professor at Harvard. And one of the things that he's recently said was that he feels that pro-life Christians should be treated as Nazis. I want you to kind of try to marinate that within your thinking. By the way, to this professor, orthodoxy in Judeo-Christian principles have always been pro-life. It's the concept of God. Also consider, and again, I'll let their name not be a part of this equation, but consider one of the mainstream media outlets. And by the way, I can list all of them because there's enough data, unfortunately, for me to share that. But I'll just focus now on MSNBC. One of the individuals there just recently said, if Jesus is so great, why aren't Christians nicer? She was referencing because Christians have a position as it relates to marriage being defined by God, life beginning at conception, and she feels that in order to believe it, you're not really being nice. Now imagine, by the way, had she said that about Muhammad the prophet, she probably would have lost her job. But because there's this consensus among mainstream media and unfortunately a very deafening silence among Christian and Judeo leaders, there's no pushback. Last but not least, I think one of the things that struck me very, very unfortunately is when we looked at this pandemic dynamic that have happened across this country and beyond. One of the city councilmen is pushing legislation right now to condemn actually the Samaritan Purse, a Christian organization who believes in the definition of marriage by God's standards. They're asking, this is the City Council of New York is asking that this organization be deemed again as a hate-filled organization. This is an organization that gives food and clothing and free doctor and dental to those who don't have it, and they don't discriminate. They will only do it for Jews and Christians. They do it for anyone that needs it, yet there's this onslaught, this attack, and again, a deafening silence in our nation on these issues. Again, I don't expect mainstream media to champion these causes. We would expect them by definition of the Constitution just to report the facts, but obviously they have a bent and they're leaning a certain direction. With that being said, why are we not hearing from our pulpits in America a pushback regarding these institutions? Why do you need to know this? This is so important to understand. It's simple. Every time you vote for a party that helps control the thoughts and the processes that are being shared with Americans everywhere. See, when you elect a leader, he or she will espouse a belief based on their core belief systems. And when you have leaders, whether they're national or local, that don't share your Judeo-Christian dynamic, you're actually causing a silence, and you're allowing evil to triumph because as good as you may think you are, you're not pushing back on it. People, we can do better. We must do better. In a few months, we're going to have an election, and not just a national election, elections everywhere. Find men and women that will represent your values, that won't demean you simply because you have a standard of a Judeo-Christian dynamic living within inside. And I believe as a result of you living out your belief system, we can change this great nation. Until I come again, I bid you peace.